Hello and welcome to the Morning After Show. My name is Joshua Reimer. I'm joined by none other than Jared Block, who's over on my right. Jared, how was your weekend, man? How are you doing? We haven't talked for 2 days.
Doing great, man. I got to sleep in my bed for the first time in like a week and a half last night.
Nice.
Been going back and forth between a bunch of places, doing a bunch of things, taking care of a lot of animals. So, yeah, finally I'm here. You can't see him now, but Keith's like literally on my arm, on my
Oh,
mouse. So I have to limit what I can actually look at for
yeah.
right now. But yeah, we're getting close to baseball season. We'll talk a lot about it. The 10-day countdown starts today, so very happy to actually have that go down to single digits, and it just feels like spring's getting closer. I don't know about you, but it's not getting closer for me yet.
It's not really getting closer for me either. It's gotten colder over the past few days, and I mean, it's relative to me. It's not cold where it is for you, but like it's gonna be in the 50s today when we saw 70s and 80s last week. So, we're still a little chilly over here, but we're getting there. Sooner rather than later, we'll be there. Yeah, I had a fantastic weekend. Mostly because of my team, which we're gonna talk about in a minute. But I had a great weekend. Lots of sports, lots of stuff to cover. We had UFC, we had F1 yesterday, which was another crazy race. We've had the Final Four, obviously, or not the Final Four, just March Madness in general. And yeah, it was a crazy weekend, and a weekend that we're gonna have to talk about here. Megan says good morning in the chat. Good morning, good sir. How are you? All right, let's get this show on the road. Let's talk about our first topic, which is going to be talking about this March Madness and everything that went on this weekend because the Elite Eight, the Sweet 16, both were absolutely insane. And it was good basketball all weekend long.
Yep. Starting with, I guess, look, we can go all the way back to Thursday and kind of go from there. We kind of saw, obviously, we covered Gonzaga and Arizona falling on Thursday night. We saw Duke take Texas Tech and then Villanova over Michigan. All these games relatively close outside of the Houston against Arizona game. You go into Friday, all the games seem to be relatively competitive. You had Kansas. They said, the March Madness handle said rock chalk, and like, yeah, I get it, but they
Oof.
only won by 5
Yeah.
against a Providence team that had been shaky, but they, proved it down the stretch. And Kansas, I don't know. In my opinion, one of the better one seeds. I still think Arizona could have been better, but obviously they're not in the tournament anymore, and Kansas is. So uh, they take over Providence. St. Peter's takes down Purdue, which Purdue, arguably the best Big Ten team in the tournament. I don't think there's any Big Ten teams left, and I think they were the last one to fall on Friday. Now, the North Carolina UCLA game, we were going back and forth on for quite a bit,
Yeah.
and we eventually made the wrong call and picked UCLA on Friday night. But I felt pretty good coming into it. They just completely are, again, I talk about Villanova a lot. North Carolina is another one of those teams, and there's a reason that they made it the way that, as far as they did this weekend. It's the experience, and it's the uh, upper tier of juniors and seniors, and they shot lights out against UCLA on Friday night.
Yeah, truly lights out. Caleb Love looked amazing. I mean, 30 real life points. The
Yep.
dude looked phenomenal. So you're right. I mean, this elite guard play is really what's carrying a lot of these teams. Not only elite guard play, but leadership guard play is what is carrying a lot of these teams right now. So we saw that especially in that game. Then we saw Iowa State facing off against Miami. Miami getting a very easy W on Friday, 70-56. Then we move on to Saturday. These are games we haven't talked about yet, so I'll go a little bit more in depth. The Houston Villanova game was, I mean, first of all, just a completely different vibe than the Arkansas
Yep.
game.
Oh yeah.
Just, all together, everything was different. And it was kind of surprising to see that even with Villanova playing their worst game, they were still able to beat Houston throughout the whole entire game. And I think
Right.
Houston shot like what, 0 for something from 3-point range. It's like 0 for 20 or something ridiculous. Like that's the main reason they lost is because of that.
Yeah.
But just an
One for
insane
20.
yeah, 1 for 20. Just an insane game for for Villanova to win. The sad news that we got from this one is that Villanova's going to be missing one of their star players due to a torn Achilles injury that came out yesterday.
Yeah, it sucks because they were my dark horse to make it, and I know they're 2 seeds, so no, but they were honestly probably the least talked about 2 seed, and people were giving them more 3 seed love than anything else. So the fact that they were able to get this far is something, especially when they shot 5 for 21 themselves from 3 point range. Just not good shooting from either team, and that obviously has to do with a very good defense from both sides. But yeah, they're going to be down a very key piece going up against a very, very tough Kansas team, and we'll preview the odds here, but they're obviously the underdogs.
Yeah, big underdogs. Then we saw Duke face off against Arkansas. That's the game that I was worried about, especially seeing how good Arkansas looked in that first game against Gonzaga this weekend. But that was probably the most complete game that Duke has put out there all tourney long, and I would say all season long. I don't think, unless maybe the other Gonzaga game or the Gonzaga game earlier this year would be up there with top games, but that game from Duke. I was telling my buddy who's also a Duke fan, we were both really excited. And I was like, I think that if they play that way for the next 8 quarters of basketball, they probably get a national championship this year.
Yeah, and they both North Carolina and Duke, who advanced this weekend, are playing their best basketball in the last week. And you saw it time and time again between all the teams that they faced. Arkansas coming off a huge win, off a couple huge wins, and yeah, I mean Duke just shot very well. They made 89% of their free throws. You would have hoped for maybe more 3 point shots, but 10 is still pretty good. Shot well from the field. The rebounds just crazy. Like they out rebounded by over 10, which you're most likely going to win all your games in March Madness if you do that. And yeah, looked really good. Can't complain there. Coach K said that they've been playing the best basketball that they've played all season. So to that point, they deserve to be 4 point favorites coming into this weekend's match against North Carolina.
Yeah, it should be a really fun one to watch. We'll highlight those Final Four matchups coming up soon. Let's talk about everything that happened yesterday in the Elite Eight. We had Miami face off against Kansas. Miami looked like they could potentially be that underdog, that double-digit seeds that makes it to the Final Four. And then Kansas realized where they were. Kansas realized who they were, and ended up dominating in the second half. I told you before we got on the show, I'm a happy camper. I live bet Kansas at the half. I live bet Kansas several times during the second half, and it was a good night for me because Kansas ended up winning by 26 in this matchup.
Yeah. Yeah, not really surprising. Miami was kind of playing over their head a little bit. That's what happens when you get this far into the tournament. But still, give credit to that squad. Kansas is just the better overall roster, which is why they are advancing. So,
Yeah.
again, experience rules all, and I think just raw talent definitely helps it a lot of times. It hasn't really shown, the raw talent piece hasn't really shown that much this tournament. It's kind of been uh, who is the better team on that given day, which, there's always that aspect to the tournament a little bit, which is why it's so exciting. But this number one seed deserves to be the only one still standing at the end of the day. So I think that, you take a look at this squad, you have some NBA talent on here. I don't know how good that's actually going to translate to, but Agbaji is certainly going to be a guy to look out for.
Yep, he definitely is. And then talk about just better overall team. We had UNC faced off against St. Peter's, and we were talking about it a little bit before we got on the show, just saying that St. Peter's has never really faced an Armando Bacot, and
Yep.
they haven't faced that athletic center build who's pretty big and able to get those boards when other people aren't. I know Purdue had their big man, but not necessarily an athletic center. Armando Bacot is truly that. And just rebounding was the main thing that I took away from it. When a team can rebound like that, it's pretty hard to win against them. And St. Peter's just had no one big enough on the floor to
Yeah.
even contend. And even Doug Edgar was just covered by Leaky Black the whole entire time, and the size difference between the both of them was insane. Leaky Black had at least 6 inches on him and was still able to keep up with him everywhere he went. So It was a cool Cinderella story. I know everyone was on St. Peter's in this one. I bet North Carolina very early in this game, -8.5.
Yeah,
I felt
yeah.
like this is a pretty easy bet to take and roll with. And usually I don't bet on UNC, but this was a spot where I just felt like I had to. It felt like too good of a line almost.
Well, sure. I mean, you've had what, 3 straight games, 4 straight games in a row where St. Peter's is the underdog by almost 10 points plus. I mean, you had 20 points against Kentucky early on,
No.
and they've proved that they can handle certain situations. But this North Carolina team, from an archetype standpoint, is just they don't have a shot, and people should have seen that coming. Which I mean, you did, and that shows. Like you look at the size difference in the size stats. Rebounds 49 for North Carolina, 33 total for St. Peter's. And the steals, the blocks, the turnovers, the fouls, like they all point towards North Carolina's direction. Sure, North Carolina could have shot better from the field, but they were kind of just taking over the game from start to finish. And you were seeing in the second half while St. Peter's was, it was before they were trying to make the run because like towards the 12 to 10 point mark in the second half, things were starting to get a little bit easier for St. Peter's and making buckets, but that was only because they were down by almost 30. So you were seeing that they were just having a really tough time even taking shots within 5 feet of the basket. And they were scared and hesitant to pull up and shoot. And it just, yeah, I mean, when you get to face off with a team that's just much, much bigger than you and much more aggressive than you, doesn't really stand a chance here. It was pretty
No,
much bully ball all the way through.
yeah, truly, it definitely felt like that, and we felt like UNC had a control of this game all the way through. So they punched their ticket to the Final Four. We have our Final Four matchups. Let's talk about those odds over at Bet Online and see where they're at. First game that is going to be played on this Saturday is Villanova versus Kansas. Kansas 4.5 point favorite in this one. I guess I'm a little bit surprised that this isn't bigger. Like they played a bad game against Houston. They lose one of their top players. I feel like Kansas could really take control of this game and really run away with it. But what are your thoughts here?
Yeah. My first thought was, where is this game? And I believe it's New Orleans for both of these now. So I don't think anybody necessarily has home field advantage. I guess you could give it to Kansas a little bit, but not really. It's kind of a stretch. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, no, I'm a little bit surprised. They still have Connor Gillespie, which is where things probably are in a good space. But Kansas should be able to handle that pretty well. So I do expect it to be relatively close, relatively lower scoring. That's definitely affected by the lines that we see here. 133 over under for this game, 150 for the other one. So they're expecting a little bit more of a defensive game, a little bit more of a grinded out type of approach. I still think Kansas is the better team overall here. So while Jay Wright can potentially do things here, losing one of your best players for this game is like, even if they had their best player and they'd had this thing injury free, I still feel like Kansas would be, at least 3 point favorites.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. On the other side, or in the other game, like you said, that one was supposed to be relatively low scoring. This one should be relatively high scoring. North Carolina facing off against Duke. Duke 4 point favorites coming into this game, over under at 150.5. A truly historic matchup here. We have never seen these two teams face off in the tournament, and we all know the rivalry behind Duke and UNC. I'm so excited for this one. I am so scared and so excited all at the same time because there's so many storylines behind this game. Duke trying to revenge what happened to Coach K for his last game in Cameron at the end of the season this year. UNC trying to make it as an 8 seed. Like I think this is the game that everyone's looking forward towards, and I know the Triangle area in North Carolina is probably going to burn down while watching this game. People are going to be going absolutely insane.
Yeah, no, seriously, it could not be scripted any better. There's people that everybody's going to say, "Oh, this was scripted to happen this way in the first place." If you thought that North Carolina could even get this far in the first place, you'd be sadly mistaken.
No.
We also thought that Duke was going to lose at Davidson, so
Yeah.
that was where things were at 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I think that this line should be a little bit closer. I wouldn't be surprised. The reason I won't bet it is because either team can win, but if I'm definitely leaning that Duke's going to take this one just because of what had happened uh, last game of the regular season for them. So I do think that Duke comes out on top, and the spreads for both of these sides are very scary because the free throw game can change it all. And I think that's what's going to happen here. So while North Carolina could cover within the last 30 seconds of the game, I do think Duke comes out on top with and you could see them win by 5 just given the free throws at the end of the game. So I'm probably going to stay completely away.
Yeah, it's man, my it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. That's all I'll have to say. It's gonna be a very exciting weekend for me, and I'm just hoping they can get the job done. And we'll just have to see if they can. All right. Anything else March Madness related that you want to talk about? If not, we have some NBA news to cover.
No, I mean, I haven't really been checking. It's been pretty fun since Wisconsin got eliminated because I don't have to worry about my teams at all. There's literally no sweat whatsoever. And actually, Marquette got knocked out by North Carolina in the first round by like 50 points. So it's been a pretty stress free for me. I think my percentage on my best bracket's like 50%, which I actually
Nice.
think is pretty solid.
Yeah.
But I don't have any Final Four teams outside of Kansas, which I don't even think I had them. So it's been a pretty lonely last couple days for my brackets, but uh, I don't know what the standings are for our actual bracket challenge. But if you have at least one or two of these teams in here that are still left, you're in a pretty good spot. So
I
anybody that backed Duke, did you actually back Duke in your own brackets?
I think I actually did back Duke. Maybe I did. I honestly don't. I honestly haven't looked a single time at my bracket. I've been so focused on betting the tournament and watching the tournament. I honestly haven't paid much attention to my bracket. So I would be curious to look back at it because I did it that Thursday morning that the tournament started, and I don't know. I want to look back at it, see where I'm at. I think I had Duke going deep. I'm just not sure if I had them going past their Final Four matchup. So I'll have to take a look back at that and see where it's at. All right, let's get started with NBA news and talk about everything that happened over the weekend and everything that happened on yesterday's slate. Let's talk first about the Warriors, who continue to struggle without Steph Curry on the team, losing to the Wizards now. I kind of had this
Yeah.
call
Yep.
when Steph first went down that they would lose some interesting games here, and now a loss to the Wizards is is on is what they did yesterday. I mean, so this team's in third place in the West right now. Mavericks 2 games back, Jazz 3 games back, Nuggets 4 games back. This Warriors team has probably like 8 more games left, 7 more games left, as from what I can see. Um, I don't know how far do you think they actually drop in the standings? I know we've been talking about this a lot, but it just keeps coming to fruition as we continue to see this team play pretty terribly.
They should slide a little bit more. I'll tell you why in a second. But they are 5-5 in their last 10 games. And while that's not horrific by any means, the other teams in the division or the conference see that, and you have the Suns who are 8-2, Grizzlies are 7-3 with a big win over the Bucks over the weekend. The other teams just can keep up here, and you have now the Warriors taking on the Grizzlies tonight in Memphis, 7 o'clock game. It's a good one to go to, actually.
Yeah.
Uh, that's going to be tough for them. The Warriors do host the Suns after that on Wednesday. So you're talking about two teams that are better than them, the only two teams that are better than them, and they have to face them back to back on Monday and Wednesday. Then you have the Jazz on Saturday, the Kings, which they should take care of, Lakers, Spurs, and Pelicans to end the season. So they can right the ship a little bit here, but I'm very worried about what their first round matchup is because if they find a weakness spot, they should be able to take care of it. And if you're the Western Conference and you're sitting in the 5, 6, 7 area, or if you're looking to get out of the play-in, you have to look at this Warriors team and expect like, hey, this is probably our best shot.
Yeah, it should be very interesting. Just to give you guys an idea of who they're facing upcoming. Let's first go over who they've lost against because I think this is pretty incredible. The fact that they've lost against this many teams. Lost against the Celtics when Steph first went out, then lost against the Spurs, lost against the Magic, somehow won against the Miami Heat. What a weird situation to win
Yeah,
against
yeah.
the top of the East.
That was the Haslam Butler fight night.
Yeah, it was. Then lost against the Hawks, and now has lost against the Wizards. And like you said, they face Grizzlies today, then the Suns, then the Jazz, then the Kings, then the Lakers, and then the Spurs. So tough schedule coming up. I think every team outside of the Kings is going to be a tough matchup for them, and is going to be against a team that is fighting for a playoff spot. So it should be interesting, man. I don't know what this Warriors team is going to do, but they're definitely going to take a few steps down and could potentially end up in the fourth or fifth seed.
Yeah, I don't know how far they could actually fall here, but the worst I could see them falling would be 5, which still would actually be kind of shocking. But do we have any timetable on stuff? Because I know obviously James Wiseman's out for the year. Draymond's been playing really poorly coming back. I mean, what's the actual timetable for this?
Start of the playoffs. You won't come back the rest of the regular season.
Okay, does that mean like we'll get 100% Steph in the first round because they might need it?
I don't know if they'll get 100% Steph, but they'll get Steph back. I don't
Yeah,
know what type of Steph, but it'll be Steph.
right, exactly.
Yeah. Let's
Um,
talk. Oh, go ahead.
no, I had nothing more to add there.
Yep. All right. We had plenty more happen yesterday, including a very interesting game with Kyrie coming back home, playing his first game in this Brooklyn Nets stadium, and somehow losing. It
Yeah,
kind of blows my mind. I hate to laugh, but it blows
well,
my
it's
mind that we
no,
have.
it's great. It's hilarious.
Yeah,
I love it.
it's funny. We've been the whole Brooklyn Nets fans have been complaining like, oh, when we have Kyrie back at home, the league will be in trouble. Just watch out. And now we had Kyrie back at home, and they lose by 9 points to the Charlotte Hornets. Um, just a shocking number to lose by, and just a shocking game where I really thought, Kyrie's so narrative based. We played Kyrie last night. I felt good about it because he feels like he always shows up for these narrative games. We saw it after he got fined in the Orlando Magic game. He went out and scored 60 points the next day after getting
Sure.
fined. And so I was thinking, oh, this is a narrative game. He's going to be back in front of the home crowd. He's going to be pumped up. He's going to absolutely take over this game. Did not do that. Shot 6 for 22 from the field, 1 for 9 from 3-point range. Only had 16 real life points. Like, he looked awful last night. He was the main reason they lost. With perfect shooting, they probably win with him playing. But just a really bad game from Kyrie overall. And uh, this Nets team now tied with the Hornets could be away for the play-in game. I mean, I would assume they win the play-in game, but is that even a safe assumption anymore?
Uh, any team can win on any given night here. I guess it just depends. It doesn't really matter anymore if they're home or away because Kyrie's going to play it either way. But when you have, so this is why I've been a Nets hater from the start, not just because of the Eastern Conference stuff, but this is a perfect example of why this isn't going to work long term. They played Kyrie and Kevin Durant each over 40 minutes. Nobody else saw more than 31. And when Andre Drummond's playing 31 minutes in this kind of game, it's not good. So you have Goran Dragic, who's obviously a very seasoned veteran with injury problems. He played 30 minutes. Seth Curry, still one of the better players on that team, played 30 minutes. But they just don't have a good. I don't think that they have a deep enough rotation to make it in the playoffs. So when you're playing your superstars 40 plus minutes and you can't win at home, we got some issues.
Yeah, definitely some issues. Let's talk about more issues for the East as the Celtics have made this meteoric rise. I remember back in January when we did the temperature gauge section of the show. We just haven't had time to do it recently. We kept talking about the Celtics team. Like, where are they at? Why aren't they fully ready to go here? Why aren't they competing like we thought they would with this improved team? They've been amazing over this past month. I mean,
Yep.
they look absolutely incredible every time they get a chance to step on the floor. Yesterday, a big win for them against the Timberwolves, a game that a lot of people thought would stay close. I had a feeling the Celtics were going to run away with it, and they did exactly that. 134 to 112. Looked like the better team on the floor, and now moves into this spot where they're leading a very tight Eastern Conference. This is going to be the most fun
Yeah.
conference to watch as we come down through it all, because we have the Celtics in first, Miami Heat tied for first. So Miami Heat's still there. They're both tied for first right now. I think the Celtics hold the tiebreaker there, though. Bucks a half game back, just a half. 76ers a half game back. Bulls 3.5 games back, Raptors 4.5 games back, Cavs 5.5, and Hornets 8 games back. So Hornets are obviously out of the conversation for first, but all of these teams, I mean, we could see where the playoff picture is now could be completely changed on April 10th at the end of the regular season.
Yeah, it could be completely changed on Wednesday when
Yeah,
the Heat take on the Celtics on Wednesday. The Heat or the Celtics, excuse me, still have to take on the Bulls and the Bucks this year too to end the year off. It's going to be crazy down the stretch here, and this I don't think this week yet, but next week we're going to have a lot of fun messing around with these teams because I think that this is where you're going to start to see some intentional tanking taking place.
yeah, definitely. I mean, just the difference. Like, you look at the difference from how far the 8 seed is back in the Western Conference. The Hornets are the 8 seed right now; they're 8 games
Yep.
back. And then you go look at the Western Conference and look at the 8 seed and how far back they are. 8 seed in the Western Conference is the Clippers. They're 25 games back. They are 3 times the amount of games back. Like, it just talks
Yep.
about how top heavy that Western Conference is right now compared to
Yep.
the Eastern Conference. It's
Yep.
absolutely insane. So,
And all for all you Eastern Conference haters out there saying that it was a cakewalk for a ton of years, look how things have changed now.
yeah, definitely not a cakewalk anymore. That's for sure. Um, and it was really interesting to watch that Suns team just kind of, I'm not going to say dominate against the 76ers because 76ers were ahead a lot of last night. But watching that game was really interesting. It kind of told you everything you needed to know. Devin Booker was having an amazing game. Joel Embiid just really couldn't keep up. I don't know if you watched this game at all. I happened to turn it on in the background while I was doing some other work. But this 76ers team looks so stagnant on offense. And I don't know if it's the James Harden effect. I don't know if it's the fact that Tobias isn't really included anymore. I don't know if it's the fact that they just can't get Tyree started right now. But their offense just looks absolutely awful. And it's kind of just a very rewinded back to the 2000s offense where you just throw it into your big man and hope he can do something. That's not going to work come
Yeah.
playoff time. And it's definitely not going to work against a Celtics team that's really, really good with their interior. So I don't know. Should be
Right.
interesting.
Right. I mean, Embiid can win games like that, right? But he's not going to win a series like that, in my
Yeah.
personal opinion. So I don't know. I think that they went too far in on this James Harden thing, and I think it's going to blow up in their face again. So who knows? But I don't see the Sixers making the Eastern Conference Finals this year,
Nope.
and I just don't think that I don't think that they have enough reliability on their bench. And while some other bench pieces are good, you lost quite a few of them this past season. So I'm I'm off on them for sure. And they just don't have enough offensive power. Like, yes, Danny Green and Matisse Thybulle are going to be very nice assets in the playoffs on defense. But what are they giving you on offense? Nothing.
No.
And your bench scorer, what is Shake Milton? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. So they're going to have to run at least one of Embiid and Harden on the floor at all times. And I don't know how much that's going to work because what you saw last night against a good defense, nevertheless, but James Harden, 14 points. He didn't come there to get 14 points a game.
No, he certainly did not. Um, just to touch, my buddy sent me this fucking graphic from 538. For those who don't know what 538 is, it's like a statistical website. They have a whole bunch of articles and they go over stats and stuff. But it was their 2021, 2022 NBA predictions at this point. And with their player-based forecast, guess who has the highest percentage to win the finals right now?
Hmm, the Heat.
No, the Heat are like fifth on this list. I'll give you one more
Oh,
guess.
the Bucks.
No, Bucks are third on this list. So I mean, hey, they're close.
Okay. Yeah.
Celtics with a 30% chance to
Yeah.
win the finals here.
All
Suns with
right.
a 20% chance to win the finals. Um, I don't know. That shocked me, man. I'm very curious to see if this Celtics team has what it takes, experience wise, to end up there and to end up competing really well in those late games. But it should be interesting, man. I'm excited to watch this NBA. This could be one of the most fun NBA playoffs because I feel like it kind of represents what we're seeing in March Madness. There is no true number one anywhere. Like I think
Yep.
even on the Western Conference side, I know the Suns are the number one and they have that big lead, but I don't think they're a for sure number one guaranteed to make the finals type of
Oh,
team quite yet. So
well,
I'm
here we
excited.
go. Um, so here's something. Now we just
Yeah.
talked about the Celtics. Robert Williams suffered torn meniscus.
Oh, yeah. I saw they were gonna put him through an MRI last night. They were pretty worried about that. That definitely changes that team. That's a very solid defender that they're losing there. Is he? Is there a timetable for return, or is he just out for the year? I'm assuming out for the
Uh,
year with a torn
well, he's out
meniscus.
for the regular season. I don't think he comes back from that.
Yeah, it would be pretty shocking if he did. That's a big. Maybe if they make the finals, like maybe he could, but that's a big loss. I don't know. I'd be interested to see if that forecast changed at all with that news, but we'll have to check up on that later. Let's move on. Let's talk about my terrible team. Oh man, I'm even if you can see on the camera, Jared, I'm wearing my Lakers championship shirt from 2020 today, and bad day to wear it, I guess, because Lakers got has served last night. A big loss, 116 to 108. They looked like they had control of the game for a little bit, and then LeBron injured his ankle late in the game, had to get pulled out. And Pelicans obviously took the lead and took advantage of it. They move now to the 9 seed. The Lakers move down to the 10 seed with the Spurs breathing down their back now, ready to take that 10 seed away from them. LeBron said last night ankles really hurting him. He did not feel good about it. That worries me personally, obviously. Um, but like if they're without LeBron, you can kind of just check in and say it's probably done for this Lakers team this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's still going to give it a go, obviously, but there's a real chance that they could get knocked out of this. The Spurs are coming out of nowhere here.
Yeah.
So I know that they're still technically a full game back of the Lakers, but it could be really interesting to see. And I think that one thing they'll take a look at is just the fact that when this thing is all said and done, the Lakers are tied for the second or third worst team at on the road this season. So while they are still above 500 at home, they've been completely just useless on the road this year. So I don't know what happens when they don't get the playing game in LA.
Yeah, that's a very good point. This Lakers team, NBA didn't do them any favors with this late season schedule. They play the Mavericks tomorrow, then they play the Jazz, Pelicans again, which I don't know, could be rough. Then play the Nuggets, the Suns, the Warriors, the Thunder, and then the Nuggets. So you play
Yikes.
one team, no, two teams under 500 in the next, how many games is it? I think 8 games. And all the rest of those teams are really solid. I don't know. Anthony was like, I'm not trying to be mean here, but are you even expecting the Lakers to make a run if they do make it to the playoffs? And I was honest. I said no. I don't really expect much from this Lakers team, especially because like we have no update on Anthony Davis. We don't know when he's going to be back.
Yep.
And even with Anthony Davis, I mean, this team. I don't know. This team was not going to be very good. It's almost like pairing up a whole bunch of 30-year-olds isn't a good idea in today's NBA anymore. Imagine that. I think everyone kind of knew it, and no one was willing to accept it. All right, is there anything else NBA that we need to talk about, Jared? If not, I'd be plenty happy to get off this topic of my terrible Lakers team.
Yeah, last thing, there's no real timetable, but according to Underdog NBA, Robert Williams is expected to miss at least a few weeks.
Interesting. Should be very. I mean, a few. I've always said could vary. It's very range. There's a big range of a few, right? It could be anywhere from 3 to 20. So
Yep.
make sure to keep an eye on that. That's big for that Celtics team for sure. All right, let's talk about some NFL news, Jared, because we still have NFL news going on in the background, even though we have March Madness and all of that going on. We got the news that Hard Knocks is going to be featuring the Lions this year. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts here? You feel good about that? Feel bad about that? I don't know. I'm excited to hear Dan Campbell talk on Hard Knocks. That's all I care about.
Yep. Yep. All Schefter had to say was Hard Knocks is going to feature a lot of kneecap fighting. That's really
Yeah.
that's it. That's really the topic of discussion here.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
have much else to say other than that. They're going to be another bad team this year, but I will say that some of their skill pieces should be in a better spot than they were last year. The thing that always gets me with the Lions is that they get in their own way and they make moves that just don't benefit their franchise for the long term. And it feels like most of the season, once you get to week 5 or 6, they're patching holes for the rest of the season. So if DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson, two guys they drafted super high, two guys they've really been hoping we're going to take that next step can actually stay healthy and finish the season, then we have an actual team to talk about. But otherwise, if you're getting a third of the season from them, there's not going to be any good again.
No, no, definitely not going to be any good. Baker Mayfield still without a home. Came out that the Browns may have to attach a pick to actually get him traded, which kind of makes sense. You know, a lot of people don't want to pay this price tag that he's asking for. No one thinks that Baker Mayfield is a $20 million quarterback. Does Baker Mayfield find a home before the start of spring training, before the start of camp?
I would like to think so. I think he's still a good enough talent to at least warrant backup consideration. I mean, he should be a backup somewhere at the very least, and he'll view that as a downgrade. But I think that he has a real. I mean, like the dominoes still have to fall with a few other pieces. So I could see him going to a Seattle. I could see him going to really anywhere. Like I still think that Tampa Bay is on the table here. So who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah, should be interesting. I think there's a lot of places that would at least need his help backup wise. So, um,
Yep.
should be interesting to see what happens there. And
Well,
Greg,
yeah. I
oh,
mean,
go ahead.
Atlanta is still Atlanta. I mean, I we didn't talk much about Mariota, but man, what a dumpster fire.
Hey, Marcus Mariota's good, man. I
No,
refuse
he's
to not believe in
okay.
Marcus
All right.
Mariota.
But like, see, look at the two sides, right? Like, you had one of your best players on offense was Russell Gage, and he left to go join Tampa in the same division.
That's why you
And
get
then you
Marcus
have,
Mariota to just do it all, man. You get him to do
I
everything on
guess,
the
I
team.
mean, they did. Did they sign Damian Williams? I think that happened last
They
week.
did
So,
sign Damian Williams. I think it was 2 weeks ago, but yes, they
oh
signed
man,
Damian.
imagine that running back room: Cordero, Mike Davis, Damian Williams.
Legends.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. They had something there with the whole Watson thing, and then Kyle Pitts had to go be Mr. Rookie and tweet about it, ruin
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah, he definitely did have to be Mr. Rookie. Should be interesting to see. I mean, like you said, like there's room for Baker Mayfield on other teams. They
Yeah,
just need to find out which one, and it's most likely going to result in them cutting him, even though they do want to trade him. But I don't think you're getting any return for him. Greg's airline cut by Dallas, ends up joining the Jets, which I just did not see coming. But I guess a job in the NFL is a job in the NFL for him. What are your thoughts here? I mean, it's just another blow to this Cowboys team. Are the Cowboys even the top team in the NFC East anymore? I don't think they are.
well, they are on the top of the list for one of the worst off seasons in the NFL so far.
Yeah.
I can't think of a team that has a worse offseason. Packers are close, actually, but they're not as bad as the Cowboys are. Um, from what they were last year to what they are now. A lot of weird decisions came from this Dallas team, and I'm not sure. I don't know. That's just what happens when you're supposed to win everything and had a great roster coming in, and people were saying Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl all the way through, and then they get knocked out in the first round.
Yeah.
So, um, who knows what's going to happen with that? But I certainly think that there are teams that they can get a lot of stuff done in the draft, and a lot of those teams are in the East, specifically the Eagles. So I can't say that the Cowboys will probably still be like a minus 500 favorite coming into the division odds this year for futures, but I still think that there's another team that could give them a shot.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think, everyone's digging on Carson Wentz, but that Washington team doesn't need a quarterback. They just needed someone who was decent under center. And I think that rest of the team kind of speaks for themselves. That defense is still elite. Antonio Gibson, I think he takes a step forward this year. Washington kind of showed their hand with almost giving up JD McKissick. I think they're ready to move on
Yeah,
from McKissick being a featured piece in their offense to more of a, backup running back piece
well,
in their
didn't
offense.
he get moved on? Didn't they move on from him, or did they
No,
not
well,
go through
no,
with it?
they've almost moved on from him. He almost went to Buffalo, and then he pulled a Randy
That's
Gregory
right.
and re-signed with Washington.
That's
Uh,
right.
I made fun of my friend for a little bit because he was so excited about having Gibson, and then but I still think Gibson takes that step forward. I think Washington kind of showed their hand by kind of letting him go almost at first. And I think Gibson takes a step forward. I think you'll continue to see scary Terry McLaurin end up improving, especially with Carson Wentz. I think he could have a Michael Pittman type season. And, Logan Thomas getting healthy. That offensive line's pretty solid. I like the Washington football team. I'd be curious, do we have division futures on the board over at Bet Online? I know we don't really have time for this, but I'm still curious to see it.
We do, and it is. Oh, okay. Well, it's closer than we would think.
Wow.
Cowboys minus 115 is the overall favorite there. Philadelphia is plus 310. The Commanders are plus 375, and then the Giants drop off at plus 750.
Give me either one of those teams, Eagles or Commanders. I kind of am hesitant. I know Eagles have three first round picks. I'm hesitant to believe in their drafting, so I don't know if I want to bet on them quite yet. But I'm
Yeah,
totally willing to bet on the Commanders here, and plus 375. I think you're getting a good line for it because that gives them like at minus 115, it gives the Cowboys a little bit more than a 50% chance to win the division. You're
yeah.
basically giving the Commanders like around a 20% chance, maybe a little bit less, and they win it 50% of the time at the very least, in my opinion, as long as injuries don't affect them too much.
Right. And then so the NFC East has to face the AFC South. That's their conference cross
Oh,
division or cross conference this year, which means that all of those teams are gonna have their wins knocked up a little bit.
yeah, definitely. I mean, easy wins against Texans and Jaguars is what I hear. Um,
Yep.
they're 4,000 plus odds to win the Super Bowl. I don't think I'd take that. I think the Super Bowl is pretty concentrated with those top few teams. Um, I wouldn't take them. I don't think they win this. I don't think they're this amazing team or anything. I just think when you compare them to the rest of the NFC East, it's almost a no brainer.
Yep. Would agree.
All right. Anything else for the NFL, Jared? If not, we can move along. Talk about some spring training action.
Oh, let's keep going.
Let's do it. Let's talk about spring training. We are officially 10 days away, like you said earlier on the show, from the regular season, and we continue to get spring training news. Obviously, we'll continue to get it because, we had such a late off season this year. So we're still trying to find places for a few guys. Albert Pujols signed a 1-year deal with the Cardinals. That should be very interesting. We all know that the Cardinals was his original team. He won a championship there in 2000. I don't know what year is it, 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. Regardless, though, he's won a championship with them. Should be fun to see him back, and they kind of need him. They don't have that DH role solidified quite yet, and this could be their guy.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like this, farewell type of thing for him.
Yeah,
But he loves hitting here. He loves playing here. I think it's a good fit. Uh, I don't know. Do you expect to have the Cardinals kind of falter a little bit this year after going kind of all? This is their second year of going potentially all in.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're still pretty solid squad. You need to see some improvement from your outfielders mainly. You need to continue to see Tyler O'Neill improve. You need to continue to see Paul DeYoung. That whole infield needs to continue to improve. And that rotation needs to be good enough. So like I don't know. I don't see them doing that much this season, but it should be interesting to watch. We did also see Catel Marte end up signing an extension with the Diamondbacks. This was a really interesting one, man. Do you have the numbers on this? Isn't it like 6 years, 75 mil, or 5 years, 75 mil? Something like that?
It is 51 total mil. Let's see. Oh, sorry. It's 5 years, 76 with the
I
existing options. So, yeah,
what
he's
what a
28
cheap.
years old. It's very cheap, and breakout type of season a couple of years ago. Uh, a guy that I don't know. I think at first I thought this was the other Marte, but obviously it's not.
No.
So Catalan Marte came from the Seattle camp and has really come into his own, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he is on a bad team in a featured spot. It's in a great ballpark
Yeah.
with Coors on your side too, but I don't know. He's definitely one of the only bright spots on this Diamondbacks team still.
Yeah, I mean, what I know he didn't have a good year last year. He was injured a lot of the year last year, so
Yep.
it's not that surprising to see him here. But like, man, What a cheap contract to get him at. I feel like that is such a
Sure.
steal. That feels like
Yep.
getting Ozzy Albies at like whatever they got him at, or Acuna at whatever they got them at, whatever the Braves got him at just a few years ago. I know obviously like that played into arbitration as well and stuff, but it's definitely I don't know. It surprised me at the very least. Astros have said that they want to avoid Altuve hitting lead off. This makes sense to me. He should always be hitting 2 or 3 in that lineup, just with the pop that he does have in his bat. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious on what they're going to do to replace Correa because have they had an actual signing that could be a potential top five hitter in the lineup?
I don't think so. I haven't
So
seen anything.
they're gonna rely heavily on their young pieces in the draft as well as the farm system, which they have a really good farm system, or they
Hmm.
did to where now they're all at the MLB level. But you know, did they move Alvarez to the 4 or 3 spot and kind of just hope that because like who leads off for this team? Like, are they gonna have another whole season of Miles Straw leading off?
I guess so. I don't know. It should be interesting to see who is leading off for this team, because I know they like to have that speedster first, and they don't necessarily have that this year. Straw, I don't even know. I think he's over on the Cleveland Guardians now, so
Oh, okay,
um,
all right.
should be interesting to see who hits lead off here. Bacon wants our thoughts. You think Vikings at 4,400 is solid value, or am I just betting with my heart? I'm guessing that's winning the Super Bowl. You're betting with your heart, kind sir. At least in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
The
go.
defense should take a step up in the front seven, but their secondary still needs work. So,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. All right, let's continue going on here. Jed Lowry, one of the only A's to return to Oakland. On a year where they literally spent $0. Did you see this graphic? How they spent $0 in free agency? I saw a tweet that said, "If I buy MLB The Show, I'll be contributing more money to the MLB than the Oakland Athletics did." And yeah,
Yes, I like
that's
that.
kind of shocking, man. That's insane. $0 spent in free agency for this athletics team. They've made their intentions clear. They are clearly in a rebuilding mode, and they said over the weekend that there's more likelihood that they just end up keeping Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas. So we should
Yep.
see absolutely zero run support for those guys throughout the entire year.
Yeah, it's rough. Um, yeah, it's gonna be nasty. They're gonna. I think that they know their fate this year. I'm actually curious to see. They have to be last in the West. There's no shot.
I would assume so, man. I would be shocked if they weren't
Oh
last.
yeah, yeah. They do have the Texas Rangers at plus 1,600, while the other teams are in like all above plus 500. But the Oakland Athletics are plus 2,000.
No, that sounds about right. Definitely not very like good likelihood that they end up winning there. All right. Anything for the MLB? If not, we'll move on to NHL blind dogs. We'll do UFC recap tomorrow since we are a little bit late here. And yeah, anything else?
Nope, nothing. I did see as we transition in here that I haven't been like I obviously have no idea when the NHL regular season ends, and apparently today marks the 1 month remaining, which we still is
Nice.
unbelievably crazy that we're going to be talking about the NHL regular season in May.
Yeah,
So that's where we're at. So let's see.
ridiculous.
There's about 6 games today, 5 games. Give me this is like the third time in a row I bet on them, so give me Buffalo plus 143.
There you go. Buffalo plus 143. I like it. Give me the Capitals plus 113. I don't know. I my This Hurricanes team is pretty good, but maybe they can get the dub at home. All right. Let's get out of here, Jared. Any final thoughts?
Not too many. It's 10 days to go until the MLB season. Canicorn has just posted his spring training information for the day. So we're playing that in the next hour and a half. So if you are interested or have any questions on the MLB season in general, you can feel free to message Josh or I at any time.
Yep, for sure. Let's get out of here. As always, my name is Joshua Reimer. Good morning and good skill.